Around a year ago I did my first Pokemon challenge, Ultra Sun with only poison type moves, but because none of the starters begin with any of those, I had to start without using any moves at all. Ever since then I've been wondering, how far can you get? What's going on guys, it's Vaperio, no life Pokemon player, and welcome to Can I Beat Pokemon Ultra Sun without moves or items in battle? So, for the rules, I won't be allowed to use any moves or items in battle except Pokeballs and health items. Pokemon Refresh is banned because it's way too OP, and of course no glitches or exploits are allowed. The whole thing was streamed live on Twitch, link is in the description, and let's jump right into the challenge. I started by picking the bulkiest one of the starters, Rowlet, because I mainly want thick Pokemon in this challenge, and then it was time to battle Hau. So how do you win the first rival fight without using any moves? You don't. Luckily, if you lose, you don't white out and you can just continue. Then how do you lose the first rival fight without being able to waste any turns because you can't use any moves? Actually, it's still possible to waste turns by using an Awakening that I picked up earlier. You could say that's against the rules, but when you use an Awakening on a Pokemon that isn't asleep, it fails and it doesn't get used up, so technically you don't use it, so I allowed it because otherwise I would have failed the challenge at the first battle. You can also use Pokeballs, which I explicitly allowed in the rules, to waste turns in trainer battles, but I didn't have those yet and I only found it out way later in the run, so before then just imagine that I'm using Pokeballs, okay? For now I just had to spam the Awakening until Hau took us down and we could move on. Before getting Pokeballs there was one more required battle against a Wild Spearow, but after it defeats you it just randomly flies away, so I again spammed the Awakening and it wasn't a problem. After that I got 10 Pokeballs right before the first trainer battle that I actually had to win. With some of my Pokeballs, I caught a couple level 3 Grubbin and Baneri, the bulkiest Pokemon on Route 1, and I used the rest to catch some random level 3s for experience. So now, how do I actually win a battle without using any moves? It's a bit of a struggle, literally. Each move can be used a set amount of times, and when you're out of moves, you're forced to use Struggle, a 50 base power typeless move that deals 25% of your max HP and damage as recoil. After spamming the failing Awakening for 15 minutes, the opposing Baneri ran out of all attacks and took himself down with Struggle. Don't worry, we won't be doing this for the entire run. Because most battles against Hau don't matter, I just lost again and then we got access to the trainer school with Wild, Alone and Grimer. Not only are they quite bulky, they also have a 5% chance of holding the Black Sludge, which each turn heals the user of 1/16 of his max HP if it's a poison type, an amazing item for this run. By catching Pokemon for experience, I evolved the Caterpie I caught on Route 1 into a Butterfree with Compound Eyes, increasing the chance of the Grimer holding a Black Sludge, and I got 2 of them before giving up. With the help of some Slowpoke I got earlier and a bit of grinding, I successfully struggle stalled the teacher on the second try. In Hau'oli City I found 2 Furfrou with Fur Coat, halving the damage from physical attacks, and after completely walling Team Skull's pathetic Zubat, I had to battle Ilima, whose Yungoos was actually a huge problem. If I stayed in on it, he can drop my defense with Leer, but if I switch out, his ability Stakeout will double the damage. I experimented with using contrary Inkay so Leer would boost my defense instead of dropping it, but Inkay's poor stats made the strategy still not good enough. Unfortunately, that meant I had to resort to over-leveling, which I did by using Festival Plaza and constantly changing the data on my 3DS, I'm not using the emulator, what are you talking about? I had to get my strongest Grimer to level 23 to finally be able to beat Ilima by struggle stalling. Fortunately, this gave me access to actual strategies. I caught 2 Ekans with Intimidate, and by using the Island Scan feature, I found a Litwick with Flame Body, so when a Pokemon makes contact with my Litwick, I have a 30% chance to burn them, which does 1/16 of their max HP each turn. Since no random battles from now on will be any interesting, I'll just discuss big battles, so let's move on to the first trial. By switching between my Ekans with Intimidate, I lowered the Gumshoe's attack the maximum of 6 times, then burned it with my Litwick's Flame Body. The burn eventually took down the Totem Pokemon, and although I didn't get the burn on Yungoos, I just struggle stalled it for the win. I afterwards caught a second Flame Body Litwick, quickly lost to Hau, but as always could just move on, and then challenged his grandpa, the Kahuna of Melemele Island. Fun fact, 2 of Hala's 3 Pokemon can't hit ghost types, so he immediately switched in for Brawler with Pursuit. After intimidating it a couple times, Litwick managed to burn it, but Hala used a full heal on the next turn. Luckily he only had one of those, so I just did it again, waited for his Brawler to feint to the burn, then used my Ghost out Litwick to safely let his Machop and Makuhita run out of other moves so they took themselves down, finishing up the first island. Actually, there was still something I wanted to do here, because now that we got the right page with Tauros, we got access to a part of Route 1 with Munchlax. They are always holding leftovers, a huge upgrade from Black Sludges since it recovers HP for any type of Pokemon, so I got 6 Munchlax to get 6 leftovers, then finally moved on to Akala Island. We started on the new island with 2 rival fights. I greatly impressed Hau with my level 3 Caterpie and then had my first battle against Gladion. Intimidate plus Flame Body took care of his lead Zubat, which was actually a Zoroark, but it never got revealed since it never took direct damage, and both his actual Zubat and his legendary type Null couldn't withstand the Intimidate Flame Body combo either. However, in the next trial I was up against Totem or Araquanid with Water Bubble, which prevents the Pokemon from being burned. My original plan was catching a Paris or Morlo at Brooklet Hill for X-Factor, having a 30% chance to apply poison, paralysis or sleep on contact. The problem is, you can't catch anything there until you have beaten the trial. I couldn't easily struggle stall the Totem Pokemon, so there was only one option left. By setting my very real 3DS's day to a Wednesday and using Island Scan on Melemele Island, I could catch a Horsey with Swift Swim. I also caught a Poliwag with Water Absorb earlier and then did quite some grinding off stream. At the beginning of the next stream, I caught a couple wild Pokemon for a bit more experience to evolve 2 Munchlax into Snorlax, 2 Ekans into Arbok, Poliwag into Poliwhirl, and Horsey into Sierra, which now has Poison Point, the same as Flame Body, but before you guessed it, Poison. With the help of my Water Absorb Poliwhirl, I baited Araquanid into go for a Leech Life so I could poison them with my Seedra's Poison Point. With its dying breath it called for a second SOS partner, but I managed to poison that as well and eventually got the win. After some lame struggle style battles, I got access to a couple more useful Pokemon. With Lapras now registered in the right pager, I could explore the seas in search of Pyukumuku with Inner South, which does damage to the opponent equal to how much HP Pyukumuku was at before getting KO'd. I also got a better Flame Body Mount in Fletchling, but that wouldn't help against the next Totem Pokemon, Ula'ula Marowak. I first cleared out the battle before the actual Totem fight, quickly lost so I could next time start with the Totem battle, and let a Wild Marie paralyze my Pokemon so the SOS Salazzle wouldn't be able to poison me. I started the fight by poisoning the Marowak with Poison Point, and once Seedra went down I sent out my Pyukumuku, which at half HP was just in range for the Marowak to finish it, so I could get the optimal damage from Inners out. 2 fainting Pyukumukus later and Marowak did the same thing. Now it was just a matter of stalling out the Salazzle with the help of my thick fat Snorlax, and that's another trial down. After that I got access to Pokepelago, which I could use to passively level up or EV train my Pokemon. I did some Momentum Surfing for some HP ups to increase my Pyukumuku's HP without boosting its defenses. Caught a couple Pokemon to evolve my Fletchling into Fletchinder and then attempted the last Totem fight on Akala Island. Because the Totem Lurantis has Leaf Guard, it can't get status during sunny weather, so I had to status it in the first 2 turns before Kecleon could use Sunny Day. After a couple attempts I got the poison on turn 2, but it was definitely not over yet because Lurantis could recover 3/4 of its HP in Sun with Synthesis. After a bit more poison chip damage, I landed Oko at Pyukumuku to take them down, but the Lurantis barely hung on. For some reason it didn't use Synthesis though, so after one more turn of poison damage, only the Kecleon remained. Although my Poison Point Seedra had already fainted, by struggle stalling the Kecleon I could still get out victorious. At this point most of my Pokemon besides Seedra were getting underleveled, so the Plumeria fight was a bit harder than it should have been. I had to reset for a turn 1 Flame Body on Golbat, and once it was burned I strategically let it damage all my Pyukumukus a bit. When they were all below 40 HP, I stalled out the rest of the turns with Snorlax until Golbat went down. Before this landed, I kept switching between my Thick Fat and Immunity Snorlax for Flame Burst and Poison Gas respectively. Once it was out of Flame Bursts, it would always go for Dragon Rage against my Immunity Snorlax, so with some switching I baited her into KOing 2 Pyukumukus, dealing enough damage with Inner South to take down Salandit. Before the next battle I picked up the Eviolite, gave it to Seedra, and then it was time for the second grand trial. For Olivia's lead Anorith, I used the classic Intimidate Poison Point strategy, but because Seedra had the Eviolite instead of leftovers, it didn't have any recovery and some bad luck made it so I took quite some damage before poisoning them. She also used a Super Potion, but that was just delaying the inevitable, and once Anorith went down she sent out Lileep. I basically had to throw my entire team at it, hoping it would run out of moves before I ran out of Pokemon, and it eventually started struggling, so Olivia switched it out. I got a 4 Intimidates on her Ace Lycanroc before both Arbok were 1 hit away from fainting, so I just hoped for some luck with Poison Point. I got the poison pretty quickly, but then this happened.
GG. That was way too close. Oh wait, she... And... Poison Point? No. No. So close.
At least then I knew that the leftovers were definitely better than the Eviolite, so after swapping items again, I won first try. After a short excursion to Aether Paradise and showing how the power of Caterpie again, it was time for the first trial of Ula'ula Island. I'd say this was the easiest trial so far, because I just used 3 Pyukomukus to take down the Totem Maru, and even though Fletchling took half HP from Stealth Rock, I still managed to burn his armory, so after a bit of stalling with Fletchling and Pyukomuku, it went down. Next up was our first battle against the leader of Team Skull, Guzma, which wasn't hard either, because he only had 2 Pokemon. I just used Intimidate Poison Point for the Golisopod, and I had 3 Pyukomukus at perfect HP to take down the Massacre Rain with the combined near south damage. I wasn't looking forward to the future battles against him though, because he will only get more Pokemon later on. At Blush Mountain I caught 2 Maru with Iron Bars, which does 1/8 max HP and damage on contact, although I didn't really plan on using them. The experience I got from catching them was enough for my Flesh-Eater to evolve into Talonflame, basically finishing up my team for up until the Elite Four. For the next trial, the wild Pokemon were much of a problem, but for Ghastly I had to bring 2 Litwick, which as ghost types couldn't be trapped by its mean look. Against the Totem Mimikyu, I started with Intimidate cycling, and once the SOS Bayonet took itself down with Curse, I used a Litwick that was still on my team to burn the Mimikyu. After a bit more switching, the Mimikyu went down and I struggle stalled the Jellicent for another easy victory. After that we had to battle Plumeria again, but it went basically the same as last time. Burn the Golbat, wait for it to faint, I finally realized that I could use Pokeballs at this point, and then use Inner Child Pyukomukus to take down the Salazzle. Next up was our boss Guzma, who this time had 3 Pokemon. Golisopod still got easily dealt with by Seedor's Poison Point, and once it got below half HP, it got swapped out for Massacre Rain by emergency exit. Just like last time, 3 Pyukomukus did the job and Golisopod came back in. It did more damage than I wanted it to, but after a couple turns it went down and Guzma's new addition Pinsir was last. After 6 Intimidates I got the Poison Point activation first try, winning me the battle, although it definitely was way too close for comfort. Partially because I was getting quite underleveled again since I only fought necessary battles. This definitely showed against Gladion, because Golbat was doing way too much damage for me to then also survive against the type Null, so I threw my Pokemon in Pokepelago to level up a bit and tried again the next day. Because of my stronger Pokemon and the first try Flame Body, I got past Golbat with a lot more HP left for type Null than the previous attempts. The first type Null was actually a special attacking Zoroark, so I again used 3 Pyukomukus to quickly take care of it. The actual type Null remained, which got Flame Bodied on the second attack, and at that point it was just a matter of time until I got the win. Time for the third grand trial against Nanu. Even though he had 2 special attackers, both of them knew Fake Out, which gave me at least some chance to poison them. I managed to poison Sableye on the second attempt, then used my Snorlax to take the hits until Sableye went down. His second Pokemon, Krokorok, was just a physical attacker that I could take care of with Flame Body, and once that went down he sent out his ace, Alolan Persian. Struggle stalling it wasn't an option with my current Pokemon, so I had to hope I got the Poison Point and the one chance I had with Fake Out. Luckily I got it without having to reset, and even though he still got pretty close to wiping out my team, we stayed alive for long enough to get out on top. Next up, Aether Paradise. There were some easy multi-battles where I just got carried by Hau and Gladion, but after that I had to battle Guzma on my own. I baited Golisopod into using First Impression so I could get a safe burn with Talonflame's Flame Body, and I used my Arbok to stall at the turns until emergency exit activated. Pinsir came out next, which has Stone Edge, but it couldn't only use it 5 times, so I kept switching for Intimidates until I ran out of Stone Edges so I could safely get the burn with Talonflame. And then came the special attackers. Vikavolt went down to 2 Pyukomukus with Inner South, but I couldn't fit 3 more Pyukomukus on the team for Massacre Rain, so I had to PP stall. Snorlax should be able to take the hit. Oh, yeah, this won't work, I need a better strategy. I grabbed one of the Totem Marus I got earlier, grinded it and my other Pokemon off stream, and tried again the next day. His Massacre Rain had Bug Buzz, Air Slash and Icy Wind, of which Totem Maru could take the last 2, and I used Talonflame for the Bug Buzzes. I still needed some additional grinding during the stream, but eventually I got a successful run where Massacre Rain ran out of his moves, struggled to death, and then only the half HP burnt Golisopod was left, which fainted quickly afterwards. I also had to battle Lusamine, but just like how she was greatly impressed by my Caterpie, so she just let me move on to the final island. I had a bit of a rough start there, almost losing to a Houndour, but like most trials so far, the Dragon trial wasn't that difficult. After the usual Intimidate cycling, Seedorf managed to poison Kommo-o, and with the help of my Iron Barb Maru, it went down even quicker. The Noivern had no contact moves, so it would have been easier if Kommo-o called for Scizor instead, but I managed to eventually make the Noivern kill itself with struggle. After Lily and I played a beautiful song on our flutes, I had to fight Necrozma Duskmane, which I thought my Pyukomukus could easily deal with until I realized it could heal itself back up with Morning Sun. Fortunately, the move choice was random and I lucked out, beating it first try. And next I had to battle its completely broken, run-killing, traumatizing ultimate form, Ultra Necrozma. A lot of people ask me how I would beat this monster, and to that I say, Pyukumuku. By far the MVP of the challenge carried me yet again, getting me the easiest win of the run. There were still some island challenge things to finish, with first up Mina's trial. This consisted of 5 battle against trial captains and then the Totem Pokemon. Mina wasn't too hard, but it took a while before I realized I was trying to poison or steal them all well, so I swapped the Talonflame to burn it instead, and the Rubambi was another easy job for Pyukumuku. Ilima Smeargle was a bit annoying because its only contact move was Extreme Speed with only 5 PP, and then it had 3 special coverage moves, so I had to hope for the poison point within those 5 attempts, which I got on the second time trying this battle. Komala couldn't get status because of Comatose, but that's why Togedemaru was on the team, being a lot more helpful in this challenge than I first expected. Mallow's Trevenant had Leech Seed for recovery, so instead of burning it to very slowly kill it, I decided to use Pyukumuku for that as well. Hornleech made it so it barely lived after 2 inner souths, so I went fishing for a Sticky Barb which damages the user each turn but sticks to the attacker if it makes contact. With this I got a bit of extra damage on Trevenant, putting it in range for the second inner south. Shinalik went down to 2 Pyukumukus as well, and Serena was easily taken care of with Flame Body. I won against Kiawe first try but then lost to the hiker afterwards, so I had to do it again. Snorlax was holding a Sticky Barb which got transferred to the Araquanid, which with the Flare Blitz recoil swiftly took it down. For Talonflame I just switched between Seadra and Togedemaru, and even though I didn't get a poison, Iron Barb slowly took it down, and because I didn't get a poison against the Marowak either, I had to struggle solid with my thick fat Snorlax. This time I managed to give the hikers Magmar my Snorlax's Sticky Barb, getting me the win. Last was Sophocles, with by far the easiest team of the bunch, since you could use my Iron Barb's Togedemaru to slowly chip away on his Togedemaru, and 4 Pyukumuku could deal with his Magnezone and his Alolan Golem. The totem fight wasn't hard either, because Rubambi got taken out by 2 Pyukumukus before the SOS Blissey could even do anything, and then it was just a matter of strong installing the Blissey to finish the last trial. There was still one grand trial left against the ground type specialist Hapu. The Golder could set up Stealth Rock, which would greatly hurt Talonflame, so he used 2 Pyukumukus to quickly take care of the Golder before that happened. With the help of a lesson counting to 10 in Dutch, I knew when Gastron was out of Muddy Waters, so he could bring in Talonflame, and since they only had Mud Bomb left, Hapu swapped it out for Flygon. I tried switching between Talonflame and my second Snorlax to only have to take 20 Dragon Breaths with the latter, but it was still too much, so I needed a better strategy. I picked up an air balloon in the Mali Garden, gave it to a random Mime Junior I caught while grinding early in the run, and put it on my team over one of my Snorlax. This time Mudsteel came out before Gastron, for which I just used Intimidate plus Flame Body, and even though Happy used a full heal on the Hyper Potion, it eventually went down. Because Flygon only had Dragon and Ground type moves, it couldn't hit my floating Fairy type Mime Junior, so I could just wait for it to struggle itself to death. Unfortunately, this killed my Mime Junior, and they switched out on Snorlax because Gastron could hit it with Mud Bomb, but I still had Talonflame left to stall them out since they're out of water type attacks, and eventually both Gastron and Flygon killed themselves, wrapping up the island challenge. The last thing to do before the Elite Four was battling Gladion for one final time, but there were 2 problems here. The plan was to easily take care of Crobat with Iron Bars Togedemaru because they could only hit me with acrobatics, and though it did work, I took a lot more damage than I wanted because the constant hail basically negated my leftover recovery. Then came with this Lucario, which I tried to bait into going for Metal Claw so I could Flame Body it, but it just kept going for Aura Sphere instead while it didn't get any recovery. Fortunately, the Permaheal was only there in the evening, so the next day in the afternoon it wasn't hailing there anymore. No heal at all. For the Lucario, I grabbed one of my old Litwick from the box, picked up a Dust Stone, grinded up off stream, and the next stream evolved into Lampent and then to Chandelure. Lucario could only hit it with Metal Claw, so it didn't take too long until I got the burn and it slowly went down. Next up was a Zoroark, which you could tell by the level, and because it again had no contact moves, I used 2 Pyukumukus to easily deal with it. His final Pokemon was Silvally Fire, so I used Poison Point to take care of it, and I wanted to speed up the process a little bit by sacking Togedemaru, but for some reason he never went for multi-attack, letting my Togedemaru finish the job. There was also a scary double battle in this game's version of Victory Road, but with only my Caterpie in the team, they were too scared to fight me and I got to the Pokemon League. I needed a better team though, so during the last couple streams I'd already slowly been forming a new team of 6. I had caught 2 Lillipup with Vital Spirit, who while catching Autonos and Macaros for Regenerator and Flame Body leveled up and learned Reversal, yes this is important, evolved into Herdier and then into Stoudent, which had Intimidate and better defensive stats than Arbok. After 1.5 hours I had found 6 Autonos with Healer, 1 Magcargo with Magma Armor, Only one Autono with Regenerator, which heals 1/3 of your max HP when you switch out, one of, if not the best abilities in this challenge, and no Maghargo with Flame Body, so I gave up and instead off-stream did a bunch of Mantine surfing so I could eventually buy 2 ability capsules to still get the good abilities. The last team member took a bit longer to get. First I bred one of my Stoutland with Togedemaru to get one with Reversal as an egg move. After grinding it up, it was time to SOS chain EVs. Even for my standards this was a stupid idea, but it's the only way to eventually get a Pokemon with Magic Bounce. Eevee's hidden ability was Anticipation, revealing any super effective moves from the opponent, and because Togedemaru had Reversal now, I would immediately know it if I found a hidden ability Eevee, so I wouldn't accidentally... Okay, never mind. I wanted to burn it since Status Pokemon can't call for help, but it kinda backfired. The chain was still going though, and just before I wanted to enter stream, I got another one which I still burned because I'm stubborn and this time it worked out and I caught it in my Master Ball. After grinding it up to level 60 and evolving it into Magic Bounce Espeon, I was ready to take on the Pokemon League. I decided to take on the Elite Four in the regular order, so Melemele was up first. He led with Klefki, the sole reason why I got Espeon. It has spikes which can be stacked up to 3 layers, doing a bit of damage per layer when a Pokemon is brought in, and I was gonna do that a lot with my Regenerator Autonos. So to prevent that, I swapped in my Espeon to instead set up spikes on his side of the battle. I kept switching in Autono to take a Flash Cannon, then brought Espeon back in to bounce back spikes or Thunder Wave. After doing this for a while, I got 2 layers of spikes up, Klefki was paralyzed and it was out of Flash Cannons, its only attacking move, so Melemele called it back and set up Metagross. Usually I'd start intimidating it 6 times, but Metagross has Clear Body, preventing any stat drops. It also had Meteor Mash, which had a chance to raise its attack, and Hammer Arm, which could do a bunch of damage against Maghargo and Autono. To work around that, I used Espeon to bait it into going for a Meteor Mash, while I brought in Maghargo for the Flame Body burn, and I could go back into Espeon and the Hammer Arm to retry if needed. On the 4th attempt, after 2 Meteor Mashes, I got the burn without him getting any attack boosts. Even though Hammer Arm was super effective against Autono, it still did less than 1/3 of my HP, so I could stall it out with Regenerator. When Metagross was low, Melemele used a full restore, but at this point he was out of Hammer Arm, so I could more safely get another burn with Maghargo. But this time he didn't use a full restore and we got the first KO in the league. His Lowland Trio was a lot easier to deal with since he could simply intimidate it 6 times, stall out the 6 Earthquakes with Autono and go into Maghargo for the burn once it only had contact moves left. He used another full restore, but it didn't matter since he just Flame Bodied it again, and he even ran out of moves before going down to the burn, so it got swapped out for Bisharp. If I would have tried to lower its attack with Intimidate, its ability Defiant would have given it +2 in attack for a net +1 boost, so instead I relied on Flame Body to cut its attack in half with the burn, and then stalled the Bisharp with my Autono until the burn took it out. Speaking of stalling with Autono, enter Magnezone. None of its attacks made contact, but also none of them did more damage than Autono recovered with Regenerator, so I switched between those for almost 20 minutes until Magnezone killed itself with struggle. Dugtrio came back in to copy Magnezone, and Klefki was out of damaging moves, so I just waited for it to also run out of status moves so it could kill itself as well. That battle took almost an hour. 4 more to go. Next up was Olivia, a rock type specialist, which wasn't great for my Maghargo because rock is super effective against it and most rock type moves don't make contact, but fortunately I could bait Armaldo into going for X-Scissor while bringing in Maghargo for the Flame Body. I had to burn it again because of a full restore, but because of the combined burn and intimidate attack drops I could heal back up any damage with leftovers before they went down. For Lycanroc I made a run of Stone Ashes while repeatedly intimidating it in the process, burned it on the crunch, after another full restore burn on the rock climb, and wait for it to eventually faint. After a Gigalith ran out of Stone Ashes as well, it kept using Bulldoze until it could outspeed me, then went for Iron Head for the most damage. Because of all the bulldozes, it was pretty tedious to try burning it, so I just Feral Stalled it instead, which actually might have been faster anyways. After it ran out of moves, it got swapped out for Probopass, which again couldn't outdamage Regenerator, and neither could Cradily, even after setting up Stealth Rocks, which did 1/8 of my Autono's max HP when brought in. They didn't have any contact moves, so I just waited for them to run out of attacks until Cradily, Probopass and Gigalith all killed themselves with struggle. Acerboda was third, and against her ghost types, Espeon wouldn't do much anyways, so I just gave it a Sticky Barb which stuck to her lead by Nat so I could easily deal with it. In the end she did use Infestation, doing a lot of damage to one of my Stoutlands because of the trapping and the constant chip damage, but they wouldn't be that useful anyways. After Bennett went down, Acerboda sent out her Frostlass with Blizzard, Ice Shard, Shadow Ball and Confuse Ray. Ice Shard doesn't make contact, so I had to use my Autono and Stoutland to stall out her Ice type attacks. Once I was out of those and couldn't hit my normal types anymore, the big scary Delmice came in. It had Whirlpool, which could trap my Pokemon, preventing Audino from getting Regenerate recovery and doing damage each turn, and although it had Slam as a contact move, it mostly used Energy Ball or Whirlpool instead. At some point I planned on getting Shed Shells for my Audino so they couldn't get trapped, but I forgot about that, so instead I had to stall it out of Whirlpool with my other Pokemon since I needed Audino for the rest of the fight. Fortunately, she ran out of them against my second Stoutland, and although it still went down, my Audino were enough to literally stall for the rest of the fight. Dhelmise only had Slam left, Palossand's Earth Power and Giga Drain didn't do enough damage to out-heal Regenerator, Frostlass already was out of moves to hit normal types, and Drifloon literally had no moves to hit them to start with. All four eventually killed themselves for struggle, finishing our third 1 hour long battle. The fourth and last Elite Four member was the Flying type specialist Kahili, leading with her Braviary. Although Braviary can have Defiant, this one has Sheer Force, so it's free to intimidate it. One full restore, 2 burns, and a bunch of turns later and the Braviary went down. Hawlucha was up second, and despite its fighting typing, it wasn't a huge threat since its flying press was also part flying, so it hit my Magcargo for neutral damage. I brought in Espeon after getting the burn just to take some hits, but I forgot I was still holding the Sticky Barb from the previous fight, so that sped up the kill against Hawlucha a bit. Even though Mandibuzz is usually more defensive, this time it had no healing moves and it had 2 contact moves, so I managed to burn it and slowly take it down. Both Zucanon and Oricorio had no contact moves, but you know how it goes by now. Switch between Audino's to stall for enough turns till they were run out of attacks and kill themselves with struggle. With the Elite Four defeated, our long and at some points very tedious journey was almost completed with one final battle against Hau remaining. Up until this point I hadn't taken any of my battles against him seriously, but this one was for all the marbles, so let's show Hau what we really got. Isolde and Raichu had Focus Blast from my Audino, but since he only had 5 of them, I managed to hold on long enough, then recover back up to full while stalling out his Thunderbolt and Psychics. I used my Magcargo to burn the Raichu when it only had Quick Attack left, but it even ran out of those before going down to the burn, so it got swapped out for Crabominable. It could hit most of my Pokemon for super effective damage, and it had Power Up Punch to boost its attack, making it the biggest threat on Hau's team, so I gave it Espeon's Sticky Barb to quickly KO it. Hau did use a full restore on it, but I also burned it afterwards, speeding up the process even more. Next was Tauros, the last Pokemon I would be using Flame Body for. I couldn't stay in with Magcargo because of Earthquake, but I could certainly burn them by switching in on the Double Edge. After Tauros went down, Flareon came in with his attacking moves Flare Blitz and Quick Attack, both doing almost no damage to Magcargo, so even though I couldn't burn it, I could make it waste all of its moves until it only had status moves left and got switched out for Primarina. Its Z-move did quite some damage to Audino, but none of its regular moves could outdamage Regenerator, and neither could Noivern's moves. After 30 more minutes of stalling with Audino, most of Hau's Pokemon had killed themselves, and we finally did it. One final struggle, and there we go. Hau has been defeated, and we beat Pokemon Ultra Sun without moves or items in battle. So yes, it is possible to beat Pokemon Ultra Sun without moves or items in battle. I'm actually not the first one to do this challenge. Another small YouTuber called Barely Alec did this in Hard Gold already and is currently working on doing it in Radical Red. I'd highly suggest checking out her channel for more crazy challenges. And of course, if you enjoyed this video, you could also check out my other challenge videos. The place for that will be linked in the description, and you could subscribe to my channel or follow me on Twitch for watching any future challenges. I'm also uploading all of the streams of this challenge to my VODs channel if you're interested in seeing the challenge in more detail. The next challenge I'll be doing is Pokemon X without leveling up. And no, not with a patch where I don't get any experience, I just have to avoid leveling up, and if I do, I just reset. I'm not gonna have a set schedule for challenge videos anymore, so just subscribe so you don't miss the next one. That's gonna be it for this video, so I hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you next time, and of course, stay alive.